On today's episode, powered by BetUS, there's going to be a lot of quarterback talk as Mike McDaniel provided a big update on both Tua Tagovailoa and Isaiah Wynn. Plus, the Colts make a shocking switch heading up into this game, which is absolutely crazy. We'll talk about that and why I think it favors Miami. Plus, were the Miami Dolphins scouting one of the top quarterback prospects in the nation this weekend? We will talk about all of it and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. And we are back here for another one. I appreciate all of you for coming through on this Monday. And like the man Jeff Premont says, happy birthday to, happy birthday. Whoa, I'm out there. Happy Thanksgiving to our fellow Canadians. It was a fantastic, fantastic weekend. You know what? It was good. Honestly, I had something planned for yesterday. Just the timing didn't work with everything trying to line up. I'll probably revisit it next time I have the chance. But yeah, it was a good weekend of college football, and it was a good weekend of NFL football. A lot of crazy stuff happened. I'll give my thoughts on it all for sure. And let's start off with Phinside The NFL, that boy Garrett Nussmeier Doe with a bunch of fire emojis. What's going on to everyone in the chat? How's it going, Jess? Shout out to Jess in the chat right now. Tyler, all of you guys in the chat right now. So yeah, let's talk about this. So everyone knows I was super hyped for that Ole Miss LSU game. Really, Ole Miss should have won. Jackson Dart made a throw on the first drive Ole Miss had. Trey Harris dropped it. It would have been an 80-plus yard touchdown. Ole Miss also missed a field goal. So, Ole Miss really let that game slip through their fingers. Nussmeier was not very good for the first three quarters. He would make throws here and there where you're like, okay, that's a nice throw. But that fourth quarter, when the game was on the line and he had to drive the team down the field, and Drew Aller did this similar too. Drew Aller was good in crunch time too. But when Garrett Nussmeier had to drive that LSU team for a tying touchdown, that man showed up, delivered a dime for a touchdown, and then sure enough, watching Ole Miss in overtime was like watching the Miami Dolphins. They ended up at like 3rd and 25 because of a bunch of infractions on the offensive line. I was like, oh, it's the Dolphins. Jackson Dart would be right at home. They had to settle for a field goal while Garrett Nussmeier, first throw of overtime after Ole Miss had to settle for a field goal, back shoulder throw to the end zone, game over, LSU wins. Number 13 LSU beats number 9 Ole Miss. People forget Garrett Nussmeier, this is his first full year as a starter. This is why I'm worried about him potentially going back, because he can only raise his stock. But, Jim Nagy and Dane Bulger were on Twitter today, and Dane Bulger, everyone knows, does one of the best and most in-depth scouting, scouting report books digital scouting report books there is. And Jim Nagy obviously runs the Senior Bowl. And they both said and agreed with what I've been telling all you guys about with Garrett Nussmeier. Highest ceiling in the class. Jim Nagy and them legitimately said this morning, highest ceiling in the class on this kid. So Garrett Nussmeier, that's my boy right there. That's my boy right there, man. Great stuff. Jackson Dart looked good too, to be honest with you. He made the throws, right? So, shout out Lakeisha says, Fins up from the Bahamas, man. Love the Bahamas, and I always say this every time. Guys, out there in the Bahamas, there's a lot of Fin fans. So Jess is clearly a Iowa State fan. Clearly an Iowa State fan. Good for you, Jess. Good for you. Listen, tight end you right there, okay? All right? Tight end you. All right? That's all. Oh, sorry, you're an Iowa. Hold on. Are you an Iowa State fan or are you an Iowa fan? You're an Iowa fan, right? So, Iowa fan, I don't know why I said Iowa State. Iowa, to me, tight end you, obviously. Never mind Iowa State. Iowa State, now, a lot of people don't remember, Iowa State back when Brock Purdy was there. I remember watching him, and everyone thought Brock Purdy was just, if you watched Brock Purdy early on at Iowa State, you really thought he was going to turn into something, and then he kind of looked like he leveled out. Yeah, only Iowa. Yeah, I don't know why I said Iowa State, but tight end you. My point still stands because I know you're talking about the Hawkeyes. Tight end you, man. Tight end you. And honestly, Iowa, they have one of I wanted him to come out last year, but, they still have one of my favorite tight ends in college football, Luke Lachey. So hopefully he comes out this year, right? Watch, Mr. says, I can't wait for the season to be over. Brother, the bye week just ended. Yeah, Luke Lachey, that's my guy right there. He's an absolute stud, man. Absolute stud. Tight end you, man. Iowa the Hawkeyes produce tight ends. I'm telling you, they produce tight ends. And I remember, and obviously they produced my boy Tristan Wirfs in the 2020 draft when everyone was all high on Andrew Thomas. When everyone was high on, what's his face? Jedrick Willis. When everyone was high on those guys back in September, October of that year, 2019, I was telling everyone, no, Tristan Wirfs is OT1 in this draft. And man, that guy, Iowa's produced some good football players, some good pro football players over the last couple of years. That's for sure. As far as this weekend, and what went down this weekend. Yeah, they produce centers too. Let's not lie to ourselves. They produce linemen and tight ends. That's just what goes on in Iowa. But as far as this weekend, I got a few things I do want to talk about. First of all, prayers up and nothing but wishes of good health to Aidan Hutchinson. That was absolutely awful to watch. I was sitting there eating my turkey because it's Thanksgiving out here. And man, that was absolutely awful stuff with Aidan Hutchinson. I thought he was, I've said it on the show before. I'll say it again. I thought up until that injury, he was the best pass rusher in the league this year. I thought Aidan Hutchinson this year was absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely terrible to see his season go down like that. And then you got Maxx Crosby over here on the sideline pushing, absolutely shoving dudes and letting them know what's going on. And I shared the video of it, and I had Lions fans just blowing up my mentions and quote tweets over that. So I don't know what the trend is now. First you had Aaron Rodgers pushing away the love from Robert Saleh. Well, we know what that was about now. But I don't know what the trend is here with all these, I don't know. It's kind of crazy that people are shoving, coaches and like, no, like, because he released a statement after it started going viral on Twitter a little bit. and he was basically saying, oh, it was just a love push. It wasn't anything more than that. Blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, please, brother. Like, please. Like, don't insult our intelligence, all right? Please don't insult our intelligence. But in case you didn't have a chance to see it and you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, here's the video. In case you didn't have a chance to see it, he's coming off the sideline and he shoves the coach. There's the video. So you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about in case you didn't happen to see it. So kind of crazy that stuff is being allowed and like fines aren't being handed out, and it's imploding in Raider Nation right now. I'll tell you that much. Drake Maye. Everyone knows Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye were my guys in this draft. I was also very high on Michael Penix in this draft. Drake Maye's game yesterday, people were clowning him on social media after that first interception, but I thought Drake Maye settled in. I thought Drake Maye was very good, and I think Drake Maye is going to be a problem in the future. The issue for him right now is he's just on a really bad team. What else can you say? Drake Maye is on a really bad team and needs more talent around him. That's just where we're at with Drake Maye right now. It's a bad offensive line, not very many weapons. It's just not a good team around him. So but Drake Maye, he settled in. He was making some good throws. I think, Drake Maye is going to be a problem in the future here. I really do. He threw for 3 touchdowns yesterday, was moving his legs, was dropping some dimes too. Drake Maye, I think he's going to be a problem. Interesting thing I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about the concussion topic for a second here. Chris Olave suffered his 4th concussion in 4 years and 3rd concussion in 3 years as a pro. He suffered 4 documented concussions since Ohio State, 3 documented concussions at the NFL level. Where's the chatter? Why am I not waking up this morning and seeing First Take and all these different places talking about how this man needs to retire? And I'll make you even a better case. A wide receiver is a much more physical position in terms of you take a lot more impact and a lot more hits at wide receiver than you ever will at quarterback. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? Someone tell me this. Where is the outrage? So, that's 4th documented concussion since college and 2020. I don't see, where's the outrage, man? What are my thoughts on Spencer Rattler? I was, listen, I've liked the kid since I saw him first when he was in high school. The problem has always been his attitude, maturity, and how he conducts himself. But I said in the preseason, he looked like he was balling in the preseason. Spencer Rattler, I think, is going to be good. The guy's always had all the tools. He's always had all the tools. But now, sticking with the concussion thing, I got to talk about this. First of all, Josh Allen. The NFLPA coming out and backing and saying protocol was followed perfectly. NFL coming out and saying protocol was followed. Who are we lying to right now? Who are we trying to convince? Yourselves? We all saw that man get knocked out on live TV. We all saw it. Why are you lying to us? This is like you're standing outside and a UFO flies by and a politician standing next to you and says, oh, that wasn't a UFO, that was a 747. No, brother, that wasn't man-made. I saw no propulsion engines. It was a round disc. No, that was a UFO. No, that was a 747. Like, what? Or you're walking outside, sky's blue, and a politician's next to you and says, no, the sky's green. Like, what? What? We all saw it. And then I'll do you one better. Joe Burrow yesterday. Did anyone see the hits Joe Burrow took yesterday? Joe Burrow's head was smacking off that turf yesterday. There ain't no way. And he went to the blue tent. Joe Burrow went to the blue tent after it. And then give him the old Josh Allen. Give him some smelling salts, a pat on the butt, and send him back out there. You know, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a football channel where I give my opinions. You got a hard time convincing me they aren't covering up other concussions right now. Joe Burrow definitely took a concussion on that Brian Burns hit. He also got lit up by Dexter Lawrence, if I remember correctly, too. But the Brian Burns hit, his head smacked real nice, and he went to the blue tent after. Josh Allen, to me, had concussions the last 2 weeks. Same thing as Tua did against the Bills and Bengals in 2022. The only difference is Josh Allen's two concussions came within 7 days of each other. Tua's came within 4 days of each other. Y'all are trying to... This man is knocked out lying on the field, and y'all are trying to tell us it's the chest and the ankle. And what the concerning thing to me about it is this. This is what the concerning thing is. The NFLPA is supposed to be what looks out for the players, and they're backing up the NFL? If that doesn't scare you as an NFL player, I don't know what will. That's the most concerning part about this to me is the NFLPA is backing up the NFL. So, yeah, it's just, this is ridiculous. As someone in the Josh Allen's body's built stronger than Tua, bro. He's a freak of that is the dumbest thing in the world. I'll take you to football. Eric Lindros was built like a. I'll take you to hockey. Eric Lindros was built like a brick SHIT house. But guess what? Scott Stevens coming across the middle of the ice with Eric Lindros' head down. A brain's still a brain, brother. When you still take impact, it don't matter what your body is. A brain is not part of your body in that sense. A brain got to be treated like its own entity. It's more fragile than an ACL or an LCL or an MCL. It's more fragile than any of that stuff. And like Scotty says, yeah, Josh Allen built different, and he still got knocked the F out on the field. The man was knocked out. And I agree with what Deontay Monroe says. You cannot tell me the NFL and the NFLPA care right now. After what I've seen, how they've handled Joe Burrow. And okay, what's the excuse for Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow's missed more time than Tua. You know? And they gave Burrow the same treatment that they gave Josh Allen when he was clearly got his bell rung. So, I mean, you know, listen, I'm not here to start conspiracy theories or whatever, but this sure seems like they're covering up what should be concussions and documented concussions. And you know why? Because of all the stuff with CTE and surrounding CTE. They don't want, you know how bad of a look, considering what's happened to Tua, it would turn around and come back and say, yeah, our protocol is flawed. That's the problem. They don't have the balls to come back around and say our protocol is flawed. That's the issue. So, you know, it's kind of crazy to me. I don't know. It sure seems like they are masking some serious issues right now. I'm just saying. So let's start to get into this, but before we do, because we got a lot to talk about, as I said, this episode of Phinside The NFL is sponsored by BetUS. Here are the current odds for the Miami Dolphins. Plus 700 to win the AFC East. Plus 4,000 to win the AFC. And if you still got hope they're going to win the Super Bowl, They are plus 10,000. So you might as well go put $100 down on that if you really believe it and go cash out if they do win. But hey, if you believe they are going to win the AFC East, the AFC, or the Super Bowl, BetUS is your best option for your sports book to make those bets. Go to betus.com, use promo code YouTube150. That's YouTube150, and you will get your first 3 deposits matched by 150% up to $2,000. Some of the quickest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer service. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the channel. And please remember, gamble responsibly. And I mean, those odds are impacted hugely tonight because we got the Jets and the Bills tonight. Man, I hope they do the impossible and they both find a way to lose. I'm not going to lie. So, it's going to be interesting to see what goes on tonight in tonight's game. But like I said, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to go in, and it's a lot of quarterback talk. So lock in, and let's lock in with an update for this week because this really matters. This matters for us, I think, okay? So, the Colts have announced by Shane Steichen telling reporters today that Anthony Richardson will play against the Dolphins, assuming there are no setbacks. And he said, quote, "I think he'll be ready to go." Ladies and gentlemen, our odds of going to 500 just significantly rised. All right? Joe Flacco, against Jacksonville, he put up 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. All right? In his 3 games as a starter, they're 2-1. He's thrown for 716 yards, 7 touchdowns to 1 pick. And he has a 65.7 completion percentage. Anthony Richardson has started 4 games. They've gone 2-2. He's thrown for 654 yards, has a 50.6 completion percentage, and he's been picked off 6 times. Now, he's also ran for 51 yards so far, I believe it is. 141 yards and a touchdown. But guys, oh boy, this is good for us. If you look at it right now, Anthony Richardson is a turnover machine. He has 6 interceptions and 3 fumbles. I mean, this is positive for us. You remember how against Tennessee, right? The worst thing that happened to us where Levis got hurt and had to go out, right? And their backup came in and was good enough and carried them. Didn't by not making any mistakes. This is the opposite. I actually think this works well. I mean, they've won 2 games with Anthony Richardson, but in those 2 games they won with Anthony Richardson, it was despite Anthony Richardson. They beat Chicago 21-16 with Anthony Richardson. He was 10 of 20 for 167 yards, and he threw 2 picks. Now, they beat Pittsburgh, right, 27-24, but he didn't play that full game. Flacco had to come in, throw for 2 touchdowns and 168 yards because Richardson started off 3 for 4 for 71 yards, and then he got hurt. But, other than Houston, where he's 212, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, against Green Bay, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Against the Chicago Bears, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Against Pittsburgh, he gets hurt. Like, there's going to be a legitimate chance for turnovers this weekend for the Miami Dolphins. This is fantastic news for our hopes of going to 500 and getting Tua back for the Cardinals. Now, here's the issue. Because of what they've seen from Joe Flacco, is the leash short on Anthony Richardson, where what I mean is if he's making mistakes, are they going to gank him? That's very well a possibility. 110%. But here's hoping that isn't the case. All right? So, Anthony Richardson, he's out. He's coming back out against us. And Joe Flacco, He's to the bench. So this is really good. I you know what? Listen, I know people are worried about mobile quarterbacks, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, okay, we beat Justin Fields, right? Okay, we can beat this guy. I'm not worried at all. He's going to make mistakes. And another 2 weeks of Huntley in this offense, hopefully Huntley capitalizes on those mistakes. So, and, you know, I'm not worried. I'm not worried here. All you got to do is contain and place and spy him. That's it. Contain and play spy. You're good. We'll be good. And guys, we got Chop Robinson back there to chase him. It's not like we got no athletes that can chase him down too, right? Jordan Brooks and David Long are good athletes too. So we got guys who can we got guys who can stop him. I'm not worried. So, you know, we'll be fine. This is better for us because this could be a game where he gives us the ball 3 or 4 times. Like, that's a reality too. This could be a 3 or 4 turnover game for the Indianapolis Colts. So, just keep that in mind. So, I mean, I look at this as a positive. I'm not going to lie. I look at this as a positive. So, all right, now, let's get into it. Are the Miami Dolphins scouting one of the top prospects at quarterback in this year's draft right now? So, news came out this weekend about scouts in attendance for various games. All right. Now, what you'll see here is when we go down, we had a scout in attendance along with the Giants, 49ers, Colts, and Chargers for the Georgia and Mississippi State game. All right. We also had Clemson and Wake Forest. Now, when you do the Clemson and Wake Forest game, and we'll talk about that after we talk about the Georgia game here for a sec. But when you look at that that Clemson game and what we had there at the Clemson game, it was a Miami Dolphins senior national scout at that Clemson game. All right. So keep that in mind as we go through the list here, continuing on. So we also had Northwestern and Maryland. All right. And then those are the known scouts we had. But let's talk about this anyways. All right. Georgia, Mississippi State. Mississippi State doesn't even have, I wouldn't even say they have a top 100 player in this draft. So you can rule that out. All right. Now, when you look at Georgia, all right, Georgia, they do have a bunch of guys that are draft eligible, and that would make sense. I could give you guys a few examples right now. They have a great offensive guard in Tate Ratledge. He's really good. All right. Jalen Walker, if we're looking at more inside linebacker help. They also have Ernest Green, one of the better tackles in this draft. They have the best safety in this draft, I think, Malachi Starks. Mikael Williams, one of the better edges in this draft. But I think, right now, if you ask me, who are the top 3 quarterbacks off the board in this draft, and this is taking my evaluation out of the equation, I think the top 3 to go would be Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Carson Beck. Now, people are saying they're scouting Starks. I wouldn't jump to that conclusion right away, man. Again, remember, Minkah Fitzpatrick fell in our lap. We didn't take Javon in the first round, and he was considered like the best player in college football. All right, when that happened. So you look at when we took Javon Holland, we didn't take him until the second round. Now, when you look at Carson Beck, the other thing you got to look about Carson Beck is Carson Beck schematically is a fit for wanting to run a West Coast offense. He really is. He's really good in the pocket, right? He can feel pressure really well. He stands in muddy pockets. He'll stand and deliver, no problem. Play action is one of his strengths, and what do we run a ton of? Right? You look at him, he's got anticipation and good ball placement, right? He's a pretty fast processor. So if you look at the traits he possesses, and then compared to, he's got a pretty live arm. If you look at what his traits compared to what we ask of quarterbacks in this offense, this Mike McDaniel offense, there are some guys who make sense, like Quinn Ewers makes sense. Carson Beck makes sense. I think Garrett Nussmeier needs to become a little bit of a quicker processor, but everything he does else in terms of standing in the pocket, ball placement, et cetera, makes sense. And Carson Beck is one of the strong guys that makes sense in this draft. So, and remember, where do we sit right now where it stands? Because, we haven't even won this week. You know what I mean? So like that's just a fact. We haven't won this week yet. So, right now, as it stands, we would have the 12th overall pick. So you are in range to trade up if you want a quarterback. And then you look at the teams ahead of you. Who has the number 1 pick? New England. They're 1-5. They're not taking a quarterback. Jacksonville, number 3. They're not taking a quarterback. Because of why? Because, the fact of the matter is they just paid Trevor Lawrence. Cincinnati is the 7th overall pick. They're not taking a quarterback. So, you got room to move up if you need to. Right now as it stands. And if you would ask me a player they were looking at closely in that game, it would 110% be Carson Beck. Now, Clemson, Wake Forest, and the Dolphins having a senior scout there. Cade Klubnik is a junior. He's technically eligible. He has thrown for 1,500 yards this season, 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now where I don't like Klubnik's game is I think he's not a good decision maker at all. I think you see even times he's not under pressure. I think you see he's not, the decision making is not great, and he's not a really quick processor. He's kind of the opposite of Beck too, right? Because he's not a great anticipator, and his ball placement isn't amazing either. But the guy's got high upside. He's mobile. He has a strong arm on him. So for all of you interested in quarterbacks they might have been looking at this weekend, based on them being out there right now, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Clemson. So, honestly, yes, could they have been looking at Malachi Starks 110%? You look at multiple players in there, but don't think this team, when you look at Carson Beck's game and Carson Beck's strengths as a passer, he would make a ton of sense in this offense. It would make a ton of sense in this offense. And that's why you look at who they're scouting, and you look at the games they're scouting, you look at the schematics. You're not going to go to a game with a quarterback that does a lot of the things you're looking for from a quarterback in this offense and not scout that player. That's just not going to happen. Even if you don't have a need at the position, you're not going to turn away from scouting the player. So, and I'm telling you right now, this team is going to take a quarterback in the first 3 rounds. I'm telling you right now. And it all depends on where they finish in draft position for the first round and who's available as well. But they're taking a quarterback in the first 3 rounds, 110%. Get ready for it. It's happening. So, and like I said, if you're picking high enough, Carson Beck, just like I've said, Quinn Ewers, I feel like Quinn Ewers would be a McDaniel guy, but try and sell this fan base on, on taking an injured guy like that. You got to look at what quarterbacks do and what they'd be asked to do in this offense. So, when you look at Carson Beck, a lot of the things he does well would be in this offense. So, and, I know there's a lot of people, the consensus is a little lower on him, I get that. And see, you can't do this. You can't this is the problem. And I got to tell you guys this. You can't draft needs over talent. If you have a guy who's sitting there, and I'm not even talking about a quarterback. If you have a guy who's sitting there who's supremely talented, but you pass over him for a need, that's bad drafting. You never draft for needs. Ever. You draft if the talent matches the need when you're drafting. Or if your guys are neck and neck in terms of on your big board. But you do not pass on great talents just because you have a need somewhere. Yeah, it's Jalen Walker. The guy you're talking about is Jalen Walker. We're not getting Cam Ward, brother. He's going number 1 overall. He's going number 1 overall. So, yeah. A lot of you guys hate the Chop Robinson pick. Chop Robinson pick was a draft of need. AVG had walked. Bradley Chubb was hurt. Phillips was hurt. Chop Robinson was a need. So, and a lot of you don't like that pick. So, think about that for a sec. Speaking of Chop, don't forget, when he gets his first sack on a live stream, I'll be giving this away. So, yeah. We'll see. But, yeah, Carson Beck was definitely in the crosshairs of the Miami Dolphins scouting team this weekend. It's just, it makes too much sense for it not to be. Just because of when you look at what he does, his strengths. That's when you look at his strengths and what he does well compared to what's asked of a quarterback in this offense. Yeah, there ain't no way they weren't looking in him. There ain't no way. There just is no way they were looking at Carson Beck. So, and I'm sure they're looking at Javon Walker because David Long is going to be a free agent. And I'm sure they're looking at Michael Williams because we know they love edges. What has Mike McDaniel said? If I could draft an edge every year in the first round, I would. Right? I'm sure they're looking at Malachi Starks. So they were definitely, and hey, look at the teams that have drafted quarterbacks early when the people didn't think they needed it. Kansas City had Alex Smith. They drafted a quarterback. They drafted Patrick Mahomes early. They traded up. Who had the Atlanta Falcons taking Michael Penix on their bingo card after just signing Kirk Cousins? So it's going to be all about talent and positional need, right? So it is what it is. It is what it is. All right. Let's continue on here. All right. And let's get into some Tua Tagovailoa news. This is what Mike McDaniel had to say regarding Tua Tagovailoa.
Well, I think they've continued to be positive. There's still information that he's seeking this week, and as far as timelines go, I know he's not playing this week, and I do expect to see him playing football in 2024. But where that is exactly, we'll let the process continue, since we still have time before you even could entertain anything. So we'll make sure that he's diligent this week and assess after that.
You really want to do this, bro? How old was Carson Wentz when they drafted Jalen Hurts? Just saying. All right. And also, Alex Smith was coming off MVP-like seasons. Alex Smith wasn't trash. Alex Smith was in his early 30s and playing good ball. So now, what Mike McDaniel just said there, honestly, I look at it as a ton of coach speak, nothing more. We know Mike McDaniel doesn't like timelines. That's number one. We know Mike McDaniel doesn't like, he didn't want to announce Huntley starting because he didn't want to give a competitive advantage. Right? So he doesn't like to give competitive advantage. He doesn't like timelines. That all adds up. That literally all adds up. You had Omar up here and he didn't even hesitate on Friday when I asked him, hey, are you going to, do you think that Tua is going to be back for Arizona? And 110%, he was like, yeah. Didn't even hesitate. So I think this is just a lot of coach speak right now from Mike McDaniel. That's what it is. So, I think the plan right now is for Tua to be back for Arizona. The man was going to like Disney on Ice the day after. We've heard, Austin Jackson even talked about it today, how he's in good spirits, how he's good. We've heard the players talk about how he seems like he's normal, et cetera, et cetera. It is what it is. I really do think he'll be back for Arizona. That was what I said when he first went down, and that's what I still believe. That he's going to be back for the Arizona game. So we'll see how it all plays out. But until I get confirmation that he won't be back for the Arizona game, that's when I think he's going to be back. So, and now diving further into his update on Tua Tagovailoa. Dolphins Tagovailoa will play again this season. Team says for first time. Here's an update. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa received encouraging feedback from a neurologist last week and is expected to play again this season. Coach Mike McDaniel said for the first time Monday. But Mike McDaniel stopped short of saying Tagovailoa would definitely practice next week when he's eligible to come off of injured reserve. He will seek additional medical input this week, McDaniel said. It's exciting that I do believe he'll play football this year, McDaniel said, having previously declined to speculate on the matter. What Tagovailoa is being told by neurologists continues to be positive, McDaniel said, while adding that the process continues with more meetings this week. According to sources, Tagovailoa hasn't had lingering symptoms since sustaining the concussion on September 12th against Buffalo. That has fueled hopes that he could play October 27th at home against Arizona, and that scenario remains in play. That's the first game that he's eligible to play after missing the required 4 games while on injured reserve. In the meantime, Tyler Huntley will start Sunday's game in Indianapolis. Tagovailoa sustained another concussion this season. He's unlikely to return to play in 2024, according to several concussion experts. Those experts include 30-year neurosurgeon Lloyd Zucker, who works at Brain and Spine Center of South Florida and formerly held executive neurosurgery posts at Delray Medical Center and Good Samaritan Hospital in West Palm Beach. If Tagovailoa sustains another concussion this season, Zucker said, I would take him out for the remainder of this season. I've been seeing some young people go through what Tua's gone through, and he would be already ruled out for the second season. Given the propensity he seems to have for it, the longer he rests before, God forbid, another concussion, the better off he's going to be. Asked if he could envision any scenario where Tagovailoa could return to play quickly after concussion next season or beyond, Zucker said, I would discourage it because if the cause does not seem to be outwardly that major, not roughing the passer or thrown to the ground, I would look at his past history and give it extended time. And if the hit is especially violent and causes a concussion, Zucker agreed that the absence likely would not be brief in that case, either because we are supposed to err on the side of protecting the patient. The more severe the impact, the more likely his rest period will be longer. Every concussion adds the potential having future problems. Zucker's colleague, Brain and Spine Center of Florida managing partner and neurosurgeon Evan Packer, told the Miami Herald recently that an extended absence would follow any future Tua Tagovailoa concussions, and that the length of time would be greater and greater. As to Tagovailoa should return to play this season, Zucker said, I would put him through a very strenuous activity program in terms of aerobics, weights, as much as I could to simulate the real game without a head impact to try and see if the rigors of the game itself would cause any symptoms. If they do, he's iced for another 6 to 8 weeks and then try to recover again. Tagovailoa hasn't gone through the most rigorous parts of returning to play, but because he's had no symptoms, there's optimism that he won't have symptoms once he returns to practice. The strenuous activities referenced by Zucker are part of the late stages of the NFL's 5-step concussion protocol. For quarterback to advance to the final stages of concussion protocol, authorization is needed from a team doctor and an independent neurologist. McDaniel has not offered an answer when asked what stage Tagovailoa has advanced to, but practicing with the team appears to be the next step. Is there any data to show if players who have had multiple concussions like Tagovailoa are more prone to serious concussions in the future? I don't know if there's studies that have looked at that, Zucker said. Most neurosurgeons would look at him and say, you've shown you're prone to concussions. Packer said Tagovailoa appears more prone to concussions in general than the average person. Another concern noted by Zucker and others is Tagovailoa seems to be concussed from hits that other players in the same position have walked away from without concussions. Does that immediately translate to he's more prone? It's hard to know, but seems to be that way now. In terms of determining how much damage Tagovailoa's brain has sustained after multiple concussions, Zucker noted there's some high-end imaging that can look and tracks within the brain and show some very subtle changes. The trouble is this imaging is so new that it's impossible to determine a long-term prognosis. But neurologists haven't told Tagovailoa anything that would discourage him from playing this season or at all. Now, here's the thing. What does McDaniel mean when he says that he's received encouraging feedback? Because if the encouraging feedback is the following, your brain baseline is back to normal, then this kid's good to go. If his baseline in his brain is back to his normal pattern, which remember, they have a ton of information on his brain dating back to his concussion in Alabama when he broke his posterior wall and the concussions he's had already in the NFL. So they have a ton of information on his brain and what the baseline needs to be at. If that baseline has returned to normal, then there is nothing more you can really do. If it returns back to normal, then he is back to normal and his return is going to happen soon. So that's where we're at with Tua Tagovailoa. Like I said, I expect him to be back for Arizona. It sounds like he is going to be good to go. And it sounds like we are going to see him very, very soon. So, very encouraging stuff on Tua Tagovailoa as he's trending towards a Week 8 return. And I'm sure we'll start to hear a lot more in the next few weeks. Well, in the next week and a half. But, hey, I said from the beginning I thought it'd be Arizona, and it's lining up like that. You know, Rappaport seems to think it's going to be Arizona, so does Schefter and such. So we'll keep getting more information. And like Wayne D says in the chat, Tua, when you come back, slide. All right? Slide. Now, I had Omar on the show on Friday, and we talked about Isaiah Wynn. If you remember back in August, for patrons and channel members, I had an update where I was hearing there was a chance Isaiah Wynn might be done for the season, where I said to the effect of, my source was telling me they'd be shocked and surprised if we saw him at all. Well, we didn't get a good update about Isaiah Wynn today. Dolphins starting guard Isaiah Wynn suffered a setback. The Miami Dolphins need Isaiah Wynn back. Despite rushing for nearly 200 yards against the New England Patriots, the Dolphins have been somewhat effective running the ball, ranking 18th overall. Sure, the absence of Raheem Mostert, who sustained a chest injury in the season opener, the sideline for 3 games, could be blamed for the poor rushing numbers, but so can the offensive line. Outside of center Aaron Brewer and tackle Taron Armstead, who rank 11th and 1st in their respective positions, the rest of the O-line, Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, Robert Jones, rank in the bottom half according to Pro Football Focus. See, that's what's funny, right? You got people that would come out here and take shots at Aaron Brewer and say he's not good, but those same people will use PFF and their analytics to try and consistently prove their points about the offensive line, whether it's true pass set or not, yet Aaron Brewer is ranked 11th by that same outlet they're using. Very selective. Anyways, continuing on here, Wynn hopefully could bolster the unit, yet the 28-year-old right guard had a bit of a setback in his recovery from a quadricep injury per coach Mike McDaniel that limited him to just 7 games in 2023. Quote, there were some lingering things that did come up that weren't the quad, McDaniel said Monday morning. He wouldn't provide a timeline to Wynn's return, but categorized the injury as stress in one area can lead to stress in another. So what has he got, an ankle injury now? Like, what's going on here? Or has he got, ACL injury? What's going on? Or Achilles? Although McDaniel didn't even give any details, that's exactly what happened. His answer can be interpreted as Wynn simply overexerted himself during his rehab. He's so unbelievable thirsting for what he just got started last year, but understanding his own body and putting the daily work in, McDaniel said. Wynn has struggled with lower body injuries for most of his career. The 2018 first-round pick missing his entire rookie year after he tore his ACL in the preseason. He then missed the back half of the 2019 season due to turf toe. The following year, a Week 11 knee injury landed him on injured reserve. Despite playing all 16 games in 2021, he sustained a foot injury in 2022 that limited him to just 9 games. Wynn signed a 1-year, $2.3 million contract with the Dolphins in 2023 after he spent his first 5 seasons in New England. Miami re-signed Wynn to another 1-year deal in the 2024 offseason. While the Dolphins have played more games without him since his 2023 signing, his value to the team is high. He loves ball, Jackson said. His energy, his excitement, focus translate to his play. It will be great whenever he comes back. Jones, who replaced Wynn at guard, beat out Lester Cotton in training camp battle for right guard. Jones, however, has been somewhat lackluster, allowing 5 quarterback pressures, 2 of which have turned into sacks, according to PFF. And while he has also been responsible for 2 penalties, they came during the season opener against the Jaguars and had his strongest game of the season against the Patriots, finishing with a PFF grade of 79.1. Despite the Dolphins' slow start to the year, Miami did own one of the league's best rushing offenses in 2023. The Dolphins averaged more than 130 rushing yards per game, 6th highest mark in the league, and totaled over 400 yards per game in 2023. Despite some free agency departures along the O-line, there's still hope that Wynn's return could inch the Dolphins closer to last year's franchise-setting offensive production. I mean, I really hope they're not relying on Wynn, because he's had a setback, and you guys heard Omar. Omar said on Friday he didn't think that he would be back. It just does not sound good for Isaiah Wynn. It really just doesn't. I mean, I hope he's back, but now he's stacking injuries in rehab, and his quad injury is causing him other injuries. They're compounding injuries now. And like they listed right there, he's had a bunch of lower extremity injuries over the last couple years. And when you're that size, when you're that big, and your movement ability and skills are a big part of your game, that's not good. That's not good at all. So, listen, everyone knows how I feel about Robert Jones. I think the Patriots game was his best game. But up until that point, including preseason, I think he's been a disaster, no matter what anyone tries to tell you. And, I do think that would be, like, I know people were talking about Quentin Nelson. Now, I don't think I don't think we're going to give up the resource it would take to acquire Quentin Nelson. And I don't think the Colts are going to trade Quentin Nelson anytime soon. But I'd take him at left guard. I mean, that's what he plays. Naturally, what he's played his whole career is left guard. And I would take him as an upgrade over Isaiah Wynn. For sure. You got to upgrade at least one of those guard spots. The problem is really hard to do at the trade deadline unless a team is selling the farm, because offensive linemen are so highly valued, especially with teams, even to teams that are sellers but are looking to draft a quarterback the next year because they want their quarterback to come in with a solid offensive line and foundation in front of them, right? So, I mean, we'll see. Wynn was good last year next to Connor Williams. I think Wynn would help elevate Aaron Brewer even further. And as they pointed out in that article, Brewer's ranked the 11th highest center right now. So, now there was practice today, And here are some updates from practice in terms of injuries and everything like that. Here's the latest coming out of the bye. The Dolphins exited their bye week on Monday with several key players unavailable to practice because of injuries. Bradley Chubb and Isaiah Wynn, 2 starters who are eligible to come off the physically unable to perform list, are not yet ready to practice, Coach McDaniel said. River Craycraft is eligible to come off injured reserve, but he did not practice Monday. McDaniel didn't rule out the possibility of a player on injured reserve coming back to practice later in the week. Craycraft, Patrick McMorris, and Cam Smith are the players on injured reserve who are now eligible to return. Smith began practicing 2 weeks ago and practiced again on Monday, so it seems like Cam Smith is going to be back. Quarterback Tagovailoa isn't eligible to return from IR until next week. Among players on the 53-man roster, David Long Jr., Emmanuel Ogbah, Namo Kamara, and Jordan Poyer were not practicing during the portion of Monday's practice that's open to reporters. Long has been dealing with a hamstring injury, and Poyer has been out with a shin injury. The reason for the absences of Ogbah and Kamara wasn't clear. Javon Holland, who broke a bone in his left hand during the New England game, warmed up Monday before going inside to rehabilitation. Holland has a wrap on his left hand, but from what I understand, he did not have a cast on his hand. It would be a surprise if Poyer plays Sunday in Indianapolis. He missed the team's most recent game, a win against New England, with a shin injury sustained in a collision with Jalen Phillips during the Monday night loss to Tennessee. That collision left Phillips with a partially torn ACL that was sidelined him for the remainder of the year. Devon Achane, who's in concussion protocol, was on the practice field wearing a red non-contact jersey, suggesting he's in the later stages of protocol. Meanwhile, Chubb continues his recovery from a torn ACL sustained December 31st against Baltimore. McDaniel said he's optimistic Chubb will play again this season, and he hasn't had any setbacks, but I don't expect Bradley this week, McDaniel said. Wynn hasn't played since sustaining the quadricep injury last October against Philly. The team signed into a 1-year, $1.9 million contract during the offseason, but he hasn't been able to practice or play since training camp began. For the first time, McDaniel said that Wynn didn't re-injure the same quadriceps. Instead, McDaniel said Wynn is dealing with lingering things that did come up that weren't the quad. Residuals in the human body. Stress in one area can lead to stress in another. McDaniel said he doesn't know when he'll be able to play, but has had a positive couple of weeks. Besides Chubb and Wynn, Cameron Good is the other player on PUP list right now. He's now eligible to return, but he isn't ready to practice after sustaining a torn patella tendon in Week 18 against Buffalo. Besides Craycraft, McMorris and Smith are also eligible to return immediately from injured reserve. Once a player on injured reserve begins practicing, a team has 21 days to move him to the 53-man roster. Otherwise, he would be ruled out for the season. For Smith to play the season, the Dolphins must move him to the 53 roster by October 23rd. The 21-day clocks haven't started for Craycraft and McMorris because they haven't practiced yet. The 21-day clock hasn't started for Tagovailoa and Grant Dubois because they're not eligible to play or practice. 4 Dolphins on injured reserve are not eligible to return this season because they were placed on IR before the final cutdown process in late August. Of course, those names being Cam Brown, Grayson Murphy, tackle Keon Smith, and Taj Washington. Teams can remove as many as 8 players from injured reserve during the season, provided they miss at least 4 games. The Dolphins have used one of those 8 slots on OBJ, and another will be used on Tua. 2 others figured to be used on Craycraft and Cam Smith. 3 players on PUP, Chubb, Wynn, and Good, can be moved to the 53-man roster when they're ready, without counting towards the 8-man designated to return from IR limit. So, I mean, we're going to start getting bodies back. You know, we could really use Cam Smith right now with the injuries that are piling up. Man, McMorris too, he was good in the preseason. It would be real nice to get him back because we can use all the help we can get at safety right now with Javon Holland down. Marcus Maye was all over the field making tackles, but he did have a few whiffs in terms of assignments or tackles that need to be cleaned up. Elijah Campbell, he missed allowing a game-tying Jalen Polk touchdown by the skin of his teeth. So we need all these bodies back. And hey, we got the toughest part of our schedule coming up in the second half of the season. And it looks like this team might get a little bit more healthy as that second half of the season comes up. So, I mean, that's good news and positive news. Obviously, the non-positive news is, you know, a guy like Isaiah Wynn looks like it's a crapshoot as to whether he's going to come back. But, you know, getting back Cam Smith, Chubb at one point this season, Patrick McMorris, you know, this is going to be good. So we're going to be getting, and it looks like Devon Achane, like they said, he's in the later stages of concussion protocol, and he's going to be good to go sooner rather than later. So we're getting healthy. Now, can we translate that health into wins? That's going to be the real question. And it's going to be very interesting to see this Colts game coming up. Does McDaniel, stick with the run like he did against the Patriots? Or because Huntley has had more time in this offense, are we going to get a little bit more pass happy? And then the same question is going to be answered when Tua comes back. Are you going to keep running the football, or are you going to get pass happy when Tua comes back? So, we'll see. Guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Well over 300 of you in the room. Do me the favor. Smash that like button. Smash it. I appreciate all of you coming through. I'm going to be back later this week, obviously. So, hey, as the news comes, we'll be back Wednesday with Richmond and ballgame for the finish line. Thursday with Neil for Fin Too Deep. Friday, we'll be previewing the game. And then Sunday, we're back at it for a live reaction and post-game show. So a lot of content coming your way. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. And as always, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Take it easy, everyone.